No,
All
they
right,
did
good
say
evening.
that.
I will call the meeting to order for the Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first order of business is to approve the agenda. Or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Eric Heyer. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, general public comment. I know anyone here who would like to speak? Amanda, we knew you were coming tonight, so in regards to your request last month around policy, go ahead and begin.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, in regards to the policies that I mentioned last month, our policies are F7 and F23, and our current F7 policy does not clearly decipher between elementary students and secondary students. And so therefore, I find that there are areas in that policy that's not in line with our F23 equity policy. I did send Eric some suggested changes, and one of the definition changes that I had suggested was adding a youth athlete versus junior youth athlete to better decipher between K through 6 and 7 through 12. And then I also included some areas of implementation that are included in they were included in the F8 policy that was rescinded in 2023. But I feel like including those back in F7 would be more beneficial and more equitable for all of the students in the SU. Another area in the implementation that's included is the athletic committee, and which would include like principals and athletic directors, and then also areas around the VPA. The reason I think this is important is because, in my opinion, like high school students can have tryouts, and that's okay on high school level, and like there's JV, there's varsity, there's a difference, right? But elementary students, it's more an opportunity and exposure at the elementary level. So building skills and hopefully encouraging them to participate on the high school level, where on the high school level it's more skill-based. So I feel like the recommendations that I made would help to decipher that as well. And then I also kind of included an area around like coaching, and if we have a lot of small schools in our SU, so if there's not enough kids in an area, I kind of put some areas in there around suggesting, co-ed teams or maybe intermingling within districts, and inviting all of, the next closest grade levels to participate with the option for them to decline if they so choose, just to, again, be more equitable. And I have spoken with other parents and community members around the supervisory union. I know it wasn't really required, but I do have some signatures here. I know you can't see them through the screen. There's 14. There's 6 from Wells, 4 from Pulteney, 1 from Middletown Springs, 2 from Proctor, and 1 from West Rutland, just to show that this is supported around the supervisory union, not specific to Wells Springs. And I guess, in my opinion, I would say that these should be further discussed at policy committee. I'd be happy to attend that meeting as well and answer any questions that people might have, or further kind of explain the suggestions that I sent to Eric. And I honestly don't expect to change overnight, but I do expect consideration and discussion around these things. I don't think our policy aligns with our equity policy. I think there's gaps, and I think it's just things that got missed when F8 changed to F7. And I guess that's kind of it. That's kind of everything. Eric does have more specifics to the wording that I suggested. Most of it comes from F8. Some of it is my own words, but not not a lot of it. It really is just about deciphering between elementary students and secondary students because they're not the same. And right now our policy has them all under one umbrella, and they're two very different situations, two very different groups of kids. So that's the reason for my suggestions, just to decipher between those two. And yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me come back and speak to you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. And also, if you decide that it does go to policy committee, I'd be happy to attend that meeting and answer any questions or give any support that might come there. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Amanda. And we do have this on, on the agenda later to discuss, so, as we talked about last month, so. All right, is there any other public comment? Would anyone else like to speak? All right. Staff and student highlights.
I don't know all of you. I'm Carol Winkowski. I'm principal at Wells Village School. This is my third year there. I did bring some slide presentations that Chris is going to share. Just some of the highlights and things that I think we're particularly proud of, and I think a lot of the staff and students are working really hard to accomplish certain things. I'm trying to think of which one I went first.
I know it's taking a while. All right. You just tell me when to switch, Carol.
Yeah, you can switch now. So one of the big initiative things that we have been really working on is our math scores. I know that we are known for having some lower scores in the SU. This summer, we did a teacher leadership program with Middletown Springs, and we got a group of teachers together. We developed some materials for teachers, but within our school system, every single day we do a 15-minute math fact fluency program with all students, and they progress at their own level. We've put a couple of pictures of the Fluency Awards. We recognize students every Monday at whole school meeting, and if they pass a level, they know, and they're working independently, they get assessed every Friday. A lot of kids have made a lot of big changes this year, and we're super proud of them. And they're really proud of themselves. They'll come in. Right now, those students that are working on division every single week pass at least 2 because they've figured out the key. So it's kind of exciting, and I think they've done a really nice job. I also run a math club 1 time a week for any students that would like to stay. I have students between kindergarten and 6th grade. We work on math problem solving, we work on number sense, and we talk about how you use math in the real world every day, and they know that that's how we start every week. And so they've really started to think about, how did I use math this week? It's kind of a great conversation to have. A couple of other teachers will stop in. So I think as far as the things that we have done for math as well, all teachers are being trained in the new program that we're going to start in the fall. The Bridges training has been a big part of professional development this year too. So that would be kind of where we are with math. Reading initiative-wise, we started doing a drop everything and read every day, so that right after recess, every student, every classroom, every student has a book in their hand. They're either reading with an adult because they kind of need the assistance, want the assistance, or they're reading independently. And so that has really helped. We did a school-wide book challenge where I have challenged the kids, how many books can we read this year? We're at 4,569 as of the past weekend, so they're pretty excited about that. Our goal is to get to 6,000, which I think we are definitely going to do. One of the pieces of this that's a little bit of a disappointment, and I had put it in here and I thought, am I going to take it out or am I going to leave it? Lisa Madison brought to our attention an opportunity to work with the Department of Education in Vermont on a coaching initiative that's a year-long. They would come in, they would work with us. We had a couple of meetings, we had 1 session, and we got an email last night at 6 p.m. that the funding has been pulled. So I did meet with the teachers that are part of that, and they're really excited to see how we can keep it going, because we already started having some really great talk and thinking of some really good plans and goals that we wanted to do. So I'm kind of hopeful it's not totally going away. We'll know more in the next week or so, but we were really excited about that because it was going to last for a year and we had just started. And as you can see, we've had some familiar guest readers in our building. Mrs. Madison was in to join K1, and she was able to join in some reading activities. They made pancakes, and Mr. Sell joined us for one. He was able to have fresh cookies that were warm when he got there. And one of the things I'm going to talk about at the very end, Eric had joined us for, and so we have been, and we're always open to and welcome and would love for any of you to come at any time and come in and join and read. Our kids love it. They love having guest readers. So, we did start doing character trait awards this year. We just had our award celebration on Monday where we have teachers who acknowledge students. This month's trait was kindness, and our next one is responsibility. But each month we'll get together one time a month and we talk about who deserves that award, what we're looking for. Students have been really proud of it. One of the things that we're finding out is they will sit at morning meeting, and you can tell that by the time the teacher's done the description, they have figured out who in their class is getting that award. And they're always complimenting each other. Like they are really aware of what it takes, and it's been a great kind of just, I think, classroom building relationships with teachers, building relationships with others, but it's been a really important part of who we've been all year. We were excited. I know that this group actually was aware, and when we welcomed the Bridge program in January, Miss Gates has, she's not going to be thrilled. That is not the slide that was there, so she'll be happy to know it's April Fool's Day. But we were talking about all of the pieces that this program has to offer some of the students that were at the Wellness Center. It has been a really challenging but wonderful experience. I will tell you, we made a mistake at first about where we placed the program, but the group very quickly knew that, and within an afternoon, we had custodians from Poultney, the entire team. We had teachers who took their prep times, and we switched spaces so that it was a more beneficial setup for those students in the Bridge program. And it has really, I mean, Ms. Crowley doesn't want to be acknowledged, but she's part of that program. And they have done a really wonderful job. And I think it's the right place and the right setting for a lot of students. So I would commend you on your decision to let it come to Wells. We're super excited to have it there. And then probably one of the best things we've done this year, we're doing right now, and it is called One District, One Book. And we are reading the book, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, and I've brought extra copies. If you would like one, you are welcome to take one. I think you would enjoy it. Our board members all have it, and we, along with Middletown Springs, Corey Smith and I, have provided a month-long adventure, I would say, through this book. We have the book, we have a website where our students do a trivia question every day. They have access to audio readings so that if you don't have someone at home who could read the book with you, you can access it. Every chapter's on audio. They have a set reading schedule. We have had, like I said, Eric came in and he's read twice from this book to our students. We have another board member who came in, Mary Plunkett, and on April 11th, so if you would like to read the book, on April 11th at Middletown Springs, we are busing the Wells Village School community over there. We are doing a Jeopardy challenge. We are going to have 3 teams, K-2, 3-6, and an adult team, so that everyone who's responsible for reading the book is going to challenge, and we will have bragging rights for schools. Eric has developed some trophies. We will have a plaque in our school, and I think that being able to do this and having a community share a book has been, I went in and read to 2nd grade today, and they are on the edge of their seats to know what happens in the final 5 chapters. So it has just been really exciting. We'll also have some foods that have been mentioned in the book, so it's going to be a great celebration. I would welcome you Corey's going to love me, to join us at Middletown Springs on April 11th at 9 a.m. if you're available. I think it's going to be a really fun time. So, I'm going to leave copies. If you don't want them, I'll just grab them back when we're done. I think, for the most part, that really showcases some of the major things that we're doing. I appreciate your time. I think this is great that you ask us to come and share, and you're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for presenting.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Carol.
Yes, thank you.
All right, on to the consent agenda. So we have the minutes from March 18th and 19th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 18th, 2025 and March 19th, 2025.
All right. Eric, any discussion, amendments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Warrants, we have warrant 424. Someone care to make a motion on the warrant?
I'll make a motion to approve the warrant 424 dated 3/19/2025 for $234,649.86.
Any discussion? Questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And superintendent's report?
Thanks, Eric. I know we just met 2 weeks ago, so there's really not a lot of new information. I know the, recently H454 was moved out of the House, and there's not really a lot to, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but we kind of wait and see what happens with this. I think the biggest takeaway that I've found from last week, and I put that in the superintendent's report when we were at our VSA all-members meeting, was when Secretary Saunders explained to to all of the superintendents that she wanted to make it very clear that by the end of this legislative session, that lines will be drawn, and in terms of a map of the state of Vermont will be produced, as well as, look at how they're going to fund this. And so I think it gives you kind of an idea where we're at. I know that there are different proposals around. I know that Senator Bongart's proposals is still out there. You have H454, which they have asked for a pause, or not a pause, but opportunity to form a committee to really take a look at really what it is, how we're going to divide the state up, what makes most sense, and then have a proposal for December 1st of 2025. But I know that from what we had heard, that there are people who are in favor of that, other people who are opposed to that, and I think that's just kind of where we're at with this. So like I said, it really is, it's every day we're getting new information. We're receiving information about grants. I know, as Carol said, that there was a great opportunity that unfortunately was pulled. And I think that's sometimes where people don't really understand the impact of some of their decisions, and it really, at the end of the day, it really impacts the kids. We'll move forward, but, like I said, there's a great opportunity that the students at Wells and Middletown Springs had access to, and I think we'll just have to kind of pivot and still try to find a way to make it work for them. But like I said, it's unfortunate that, once again, a decision was made somewhere in an office somewhere about a bottom line with really not truly quite understand the true impacts of those decisions. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing a lot of people and our legislators, a lot of legislators are asking for at least a pause to really understand the consequences and the gravity of some of these decisions that'll be made, that'll lay out the future of our education for our kids in Vermont. So. Be more than happy to answer any questions you may have about any of this information. I know about H454.
Since
Question, but I know there's a lot there. So, I'll do my best. I could just.
Since we've been talking about grants, and I know in my job field they've been pulled, and the federal government office has been shut down and people have been sent home. Did we do any further exploring about the grant positions that we have? So let's say we've offered contracts, but we have people that are 80% grant funded. Do we have any caveat we can put in there? Or do we have an out if we lose that funding? Is that position only funded 100%? If we lose 80% grant funding, does it come 0.2, or how does that work?
So we have asked legal about this, and we're waiting to hear back. I think
Okay.
a lot of districts are asking the same question,
Okay.
that they do have a lot of positions that are partially grant-funded, and
Yeah,
whether or not it would be on the local district or local SU would have to pay the remainder, or if it would just be the position just goes away, because you can't fully fund that position. So we're waiting to see what occurs, what happens. We don't anticipate losing, looking at some of the, Lisa, myself, and Louis have been looking at this very closely, and we looked at the positions that were funded. I think where they're funding from right now, from what we've heard from Linda McMahon and others, that we think we may be okay with some of our key positions. And I think some of the grants that we'll lose are programs such as, they talked about tonight. But I think a lot of them are around Title I, IDEA, which, like I said, I don't believe that the federal government, is going to dive too deep into those as of right now. So, but you never know. I mean, all it takes is one swish
I
of a
wouldn't hold my breath.
Sharpie, and then things could change on a dime.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
I know, Lisa, is there anything you want to add to that? I mean, just, you deal a lot with the grants.
Well, I was gonna talk about this in my report, but I'll jump in here. That, the grant that Carol was talking about and Chris alluded to too, so the Read Vermont grant that was, what it was ESSER funding from like the ARP funding and ESSER funding that was COVID money. And it was state money that they had gotten from those grants that they had not spent during the grant period, and they had requested an extension from the federal government and had been granted that extension by the federal government, and they had invested that in this Read Vermont coaching program, and then their extension was rescinded by the new administration, which was not the one who had approved the extension. And so they're, and very abruptly, I mean, they were notified on the 28th that it was rescinded effective on the 28th. And so they are trying to figure out a plan. We have a webinar on Tuesday. They're going to let us know about potential next steps. So that's one portion of the grant funding that we have to support this work. We also have the CFP funding that we have allocated to support the teacher portion of involvement in this coaching program and in the other professional development activities associated with the grant, some of which our teachers have already completed and some of which they have not, some of which might still be available and some of which might not. So there's that, and that funding is still available and still intact. So it's very complex, and you really have to look at every single funding impact and look at what happens. So again, this is funding that had already expired at the state level, not funding at the local level, and a waiver and an extension and all those things. So, but it is a very quickly moving landscape at this point, and we are getting, as Chris said, information, sort of all the time. At this time, the information that is being shared with us is that we should not have impacts directly on our Title I or IDEA funding for the upcoming fiscal year. That's what we know at this time. And, as Chris and I were talking about yesterday, our ability to predict beyond, it's, your guess is as good as ours. And as we get information, we are processing it as well we can. And Chris and Louis and I we started meeting over February vacation and really talking about kind of some forecasting and what might happen if, and what if this, and what if that, and percentages, and various scenarios, and there's multiple layers because our grant funding has sort of multiple filters. So the federal government starts with grant funding, and then it's distributed to states, and then the states distribute it to the local LEAs. And so there are multiple points where the way that things have been done in the past could potentially be altered. And it's very difficult to, anticipate with any certainty, if A, well then B, but it's, there's a lot of moving pieces in this. So it's not a very simple system. It's a complex funding system. So not easy to predict every last detail of what might happen, but we've broadcast some broad scenarios, I would say, and have some preliminary thinking and questions for legal counsel around next year. And that's kind of where we're at with those conversations at this point.
You have a question?
It was just a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that coaching work is really valuable training for teachers because it gets everyone on the same page with current practice. So I really hope it works out, and it's a shame it was
Paused. They're calling it a pause. The
Okay.
agency is calling it a pause.
all right, but it can't take too long
Might
to
as well call it a
pause
halt.
Hopeful.
because the kids need it now.
Unless
And-
the federal judge is going to send an injunction down, we're not getting the money.
I believe the agency is intending to apply for an additional waiver. There's some mechanism that they can use, so I don't know the details of that process or timeline or what that looks like, but they did indicate an intention to do so in the letter that they sent to the field.
My only comment would be for us and for our constituents is that it's going to get way worse before it gets better. We have a history of making plans, like to your point, the federal government kicks off grants, which then kicks the states, which then allows us to build budgets with some sense of reliability of where the funding's coming from, and it's all getting shaken up now, including what Montpelier is trying to do and upheal what Vermont's landscape looks like, which makes it really difficult for this board or whatever the future boards look like to actually make a budget, to actually impact our students when things are getting ripped out of our hands. And every vote up and down your ticket makes important noise, and here we are dealing with, you wanted to shake up, we're going to get it, and it's going to have a devastating impact on our kids or our ability to create budgets or to, we're not only educating kids, but we're employers, and we can't even guarantee employment to folks with a it's going to ripple through our economy, and it's going to be really difficult to promise people positions when we don't know if we have funding to do it, when we have a 30, 40, 50-year history of democracy at work. So it's not going to be any easier, even what comes out of Montpelier. It's not going to, overnight, we're not going to see your property taxes get cut in half. What you will see is a lot of people lose jobs and a lot of kids get underserved. So think about that.
Any other questions for the superintendent? I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to under assistant superintendent's report.
Well, I have some brighter notes because, we continue
Could
to
use
move
them.
forward and to engage in the important work of focusing on teaching and learning in the curriculum instruction assessment PD world over here. And our teachers have been hard at work. We just had a great in-service day in March at both Pulteney High School and Pulteney Elementary School. And we were doing some work both related to the strategic plan and continuous improvement plan. And one piece I wanted to highlight, I know this board has been really excited and supportive of creating enrichment opportunities for students and creating collaboration and engagement across our schools. And we have 3 departments, bless you, that have created cross-SU enrichment activities and events for students this spring. And I really wanted to celebrate that and invite you to participate and attend in them. And we'll continue to share information, but our physical education teachers have coordinated a 6th grade field day, or like a cooperative games day, for all 6th graders across the Supervisory Union. It's going to be at the end of May 29th at Northwood Park. And so this is be our first one. And so they are going to have all the students there for a day of fun but competitive games and activities. And our visual arts teachers are planning an SU level art show that will run at the Castleton University Downtown Gallery in downtown Rutland, which is right near where our old central office used to be. And the show will run from May 15th to June 1st, but there is an opening reception on Thursday, May 15th from 6 to 7:30 that we would love to invite all of you to. And I'll make sure that you get this in an email from us as well, so you don't have to worry about that. But we'll have some live performances and student artwork to share on that evening from all of our schools. And our librarians across our schools have their second annual Golden Dome book competition, where they have teams from each of the schools who are reading the Golden Dome books, and they have a friendly competition at West Rutland School the morning of May 21st from 8:45 to 11:15 a.m. It'll be in the gym, and so our schools will be sending teams of students from 5th and 6th grades to participate in that event too. So many, and our teachers are, coordinating those and working together to put them on, and I'm just really proud of them and grateful for all their work to plan the logistics of bringing everybody together and getting everybody on the same page, and really that whole GRCSU spirit and vision that we have been talking about for a long time and that you all have been promoting and supporting for a long time. We're starting to see it be able to come to life for our students and bring our students together for events and activities that showcase different areas of their day and their expertise, and allow them to have some special activities and celebrations too. So some pretty exciting and special things to share. And yeah, so we'll end up with some positive things going on too. We are not on pause. We are full steam ahead trying to make great things happen for GRCSU students every day.
Nice.
Perfect.
That was a good one. Okay. All right, any questions? All right, thank you, Lisa. We'll move on to personnel. We have the contract recommendations. This is information, but did anyone have any questions around the contract recommendations? All right, and then on to resignations. Again, it says informational purposes. I don't think we need to take any action on it. All right, monthly reports. Oh, I just noticed Lewis isn't here. I guess it would be okay if you had any questions on the reports to forward them to those. All right. New business. Snow days.
All right, so up until about a month ago, I thought we were going to make it through the year without any snow days, and I was getting very excited about it. But so we have 2 snow days this year, and each year when we have snow days, that go before the board to ask the board what they would like to do. Currently, our last student day is Friday, June 13th. If we were to add those 2 snow days back, then the last student day would be June 17th. They would come back for that Monday and Tuesday. As I've explained to you before, I think each year I explained this to you about the complexities of our current teaching agreement, that currently right now that our teaching staff in the contract says 186 working days, 180 of those have to be with students. And so if we would waive days for students, then in a sense we can't necessarily ask the teachers to come back, because then it would be in violation of the CBA. So my recommendation would be that, particularly looking at our scores and things that we need to do, that I don't think we can really lose any time of instruction. I would ask the board to consider this year not waiving days and bring the kids back for the 16th and 17th. So,
Is the 17th a half-day?
yes, 17th will be a half-day. So,
Any questions, discussion? I think we've always waived days as far as I can remember, but, yeah. And in order to, we need to have a motion on this to not waive any
yes,
days?
because you'd be altering the calendar.
So it has to be 180 days.
180 days with students.
Okay.
So if we could waive those 2 student days, then there'd be 178, and so therefore, then we'd be in violation of CBA. We've ran this problem each year with the snow
Gotcha.
days. And the board has in the past, waived days and given both staff, teacher and paras the days off, which is a large amount of money,
Yep.
which we've discussed. So,
Yeah, we did that 2 years ago, and last year we did that. Or maybe one day.
one day.
One day.
Okay, effectively, we just need to change the last day to the 17th.
Correct.
I appreciate your fiscal and position. I personally don't think there's gonna be a lot of learning happening that Monday or Tuesday. I'd like that you're our fiscal guy, so you gotta have that position, but I would personally vote to cancel those last 2 days and make Friday the last one. It's a long year. They put in some good work. They're pacing the AP test, Tuesday the 17th at 9 in the morning.
So I just want to say,
I get
you
where
can
you're
make the
coming
same
from.
argument for the Thursday and Friday, the 12th and 13th. And if we waive that, you can make the argument for the 10th and the 11th.
I'm with you. I
Whatever
know
that
your
last
position.
day
I'm just
is. I'm just
saying.
saying, you can make that same argument for one of the last days, so.
By the last 20, if you want to be
Right.
realistic.
Yes.
But
Well, that's something we're hoping to change, so. But they said, they said that's my recommendation, but the board has the authority to do as they please, and I'll support whatever the board decides.
Anyone else? Questions, comment?
Well, just clear, it's really a day and a half, not 2 days. I mean, it counts as 2 days, but I'm just saying it's really a day and a half.
For students, it'd be a day and a half, correct, for,
Usually whatever the last day of school is a half day for
Right.
students.
Students only.
Yeah, so if no one has any questions or further comments, I think we would need a motion either way.
I'll make a motion to extend the year to Tuesday, the 17th, is
June
that?
17th. Okay. Okay. All right, motion by Meredith. Any, again, further discussion on this? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No?
Bye,
Okay.
or no, whatever.
The ayes have it. Okay. GRCSU work plan. So we approved this back in the fall, I think it was. And on the work plan, we have, again, on here for the board to review and amend, if needed, the work plan. And I think this basically is, something that we worked on last year. And it does help outline the work that the SU board will encompass, and it also works toward district quality standards as well. So are there any questions or suggested changes?
So there's nothing on for next month. Is there a reason why for that?
No, I just think it was, there was just nothing that came up, if I recall.
So I guess I would like then for next month, the last time we discussed it, it was kind of in its infancy, and I don't feel like we ever, and things have changed since then, and we listened to the principal tell about the Bridges program in her school and how it changed, that we need to have a discussion again about these new programs we've set in the hub, the bridges, the connector, whatever we're calling them. The last time we had the discussion, there wasn't even a common language of what we were calling them. Even in the conversation, the verbiage changed. So I think that some time has passed. It would be informative for us to hear about them, where they've landed, number of students that we are seeing in them, staffing. Those are all things I think that go with quality standards, go with budgeting, and helping us make a plan as we move forward.
Okay. And, you know, just to be clear, this would be like a reoccurring, you know, and this is an annual work plan, so.
I don't think it's a bad thing to hear about that annually.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? George?
I see in May, all the members of Greater Rutland have a capital maintenance plan listed. So I've added a discussion on that at our facilities committee meeting for next month. Is that the correct thing to do? Should we be discussing that plan?
So what it would be, when this was set up, my understanding was that it would just be an update to the 5-year plans, if, you know, so based upon the course of the year, if there are any alterations or changes that need to be made to that plan, we brought back before the board. So like with Wells, at the facilities committee, that could be discussed there and then brought back to the board. But other boards don't have a facilities committee, so it'd just be brought to the board for review and for discussion.
Okay.
So if, like, say, Quarry Valley, if over the course of the year, a wall needed to be replaced or a couple windows, then we'd have to add that to the plan. That was not on the plan originally. So.
Discussion? Cool. And I think this is also, it's a working document. You know, I've seen other examples where as things come up, they can be added or changed. But it's definitely, it's good to see what's coming up for each board meeting annually. So if there's no other discussion.
Well, I do think if we're having the retreat in July, we need to start having some conversation about that.
Yeah.
Because when we're going to have it, if we're going to have a speaker, what it's going to encompass,
Yep.
rather than waiting till June and then July rolls around and doesn't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, I've already-
Or it's like, we can only have one speaker from the VSBA come or something, you know, so.
No, I already thought about that, and I plan to incorporate that in May's agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, because, yeah, there was already plenty on this agenda, but that's a good point, because we did postpone it last month for another meeting, so. All right, so, yeah, so if someone would like to make a motion to adopt the work plan, or approve the work plan.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by George. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, on to policy. So we have E17 and H4. These were first reads back in February, I think. And so they have been warned, and So if there's no questions, then we'll take a motion to adopt them.
I'll make that motion to adopt the two.
George, any discussion?
I guess I'd just like to know, moving forward, and I spoke to Chris about this, the non-school sponsored literature, how we're going to be able to designate that that's been approved. So if a flyer is being handed out at a school, how do we know that it's made its way here and it's been approved by Chris? That it's not just someone at the grounds handing it out, or that, you know, it doesn't get thrown into a newsletter because somebody emailed it or something. And I know that goes in procedures but I just think that there needs to be some way, some marking, something on each of those documents so that we know, going forward, that they're being approved. Because I do think there is an issue. Don't get me wrong, that it's happening and there are things that are inappropriate. But without calling Chris every time, you have no idea if they've been approved or not.
Okay. I mean, it says the superintendent may authorize. It doesn't say shall.
I wondered if that meant may authorize because he has to make the final call. I mean, people send so much stuff to schools because there you've got a public that it doesn't cost anything to advertise with them.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a decision-making person.
The policy doesn't have a lot of weight if it's not going to go to the superintendent for approval. Otherwise, it's just words on a paper.
Yeah. A lot of times, let me see here. I mean, I get what you're saying. Superintendent or designee. I guess you're right, and you know, that would be outlined in procedures, so.
And I think it should be superintendent. I don't think it's superintendent or designee. Designee means what? Principals, I think it should be the superintendent. So,
All right, well, we've had,
well, I said it last time we discussed this. This policy's gone round and round about other things. Not even this. There were other issues that Eric had with it when it first came, so, Eric Heyer.
yes.
Yeah, but I said in the beginning that I thought it should be the superintendent. That, otherwise you don't have continuity. If it's principal, if it's just in your community, someone sends you something from your community to a principal, and they're like, yeah, we want to support that. So there's a lack of continuity, I think, when it's just building admin. I think it should be superintendents, but.
And then what are you gonna have a stamp on it?
I don't know, I
Put our
think,
logo on it, or?
maybe your logo goes on it, maybe the GRCSU logo goes on it, if it's been approved, yeah.
This is approved by.
Yeah,
I think you have to do something like that if you're gonna have them run.
I'm just saying, otherwise it seems like there's not a lot of purpose to it. It just seems like
Yeah.
we have a policy, but we don't really care. That's how it reads to me otherwise.
My ears perked up because I had just given this community event to the principal. It's to serve the community, you know. And then I thought, was I overstepping my bounds that it shouldn't be publicized? But it was, you know, some things, a school is a community, and it interacts with the greater community, so you want certain things to be given to the
Well,
school.
once you take that step, then everyone has a step inside the door.
Yeah.
So that becomes the issue. And we say pretty clearly in there, I didn't pull it up, about curriculum, right?
Yeah,
If
if
it's
it's not curriculum related, and this
Yeah.
wasn't, it was a event.
So, I don't know.
I know. I didn't want to do the wrong
Have there
thing.
been issues or complaints about this?
I've not received any at this time, no.
Oh,
But that doesn't mean that there aren't. I mean, I'm saying that, so,
And this is, for the most part, a model policy with just a couple of edits, but nothing that would change it significantly. And we have not, adopted this at all, so it's not an existing policy. So, once it goes through and is adopted, then it'll take effect. So it's really kind of hard to say what impact it has had without having it in place. So, we've talked about it in committee twice. And then we had first reads in February. Yeah, and it went through all the boards, so.
Yeah, I guess to my question, without the policy, have there been issues with too much or inappropriate materials being distributed in the schools that we know of?
I don't think there's any threshold. I mean, it's just if someone sends something, if you send something, they put it in, kind of thing, so.
I can't see it
Examples?
always going to the superintendent, though. He'd be so overwhelmed with all the schools and all the stuff that they get, but I'm sure he could trust the principals or someone to follow whatever guidelines, you have. If it's something that someone was uncomfortable with, they could ask for support, but I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I just think it's a guideline, and if there's no big issues out there, and this guideline provides a way to look at future possible issues, let's approve it and let it go, and then if we have to tweak it or update it later on, we'll do so. I don't want to see a fix established for a problem we don't have.
Well, not a problem till it's a problem. And that could be a big problem. So if we have no policy.
What I'm hearing now is it's not a problem.
Until
No
a
one's
piece of
coming
literature goes
forward
out
with
that
an
we don't
example
want.
of too much or inappropriate information being distributed in schools,
Well, there's no
yet we're going to
policy.
take action to prevent that. And we're proposing a guideline for new stuff that comes in to kind of evaluate it and call it. So I don't see what the issue with that is.
And, I think one key component to this policy that is important is under administrative responsibilities, it talks about the procedure piece, and it says superintendent shall establish the procedures, which, and then it lists. So I think if there's concern with anything that could potentially be distributed that may not be appropriate, you just look to this list, and it would include, those components of a procedure that would prevent those things from, being distributed. I think that's what that is intended to do. And that's kind of how I interpret that.
And any designee would be following this policy as well. So,
All right, so George made a motion to adopt E17 and H4. Is there any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
One opposed, the ayes have it. All right. On to policy review request. All right, so as we talked about last month, we had a request in regards to policy F7. And so, this is kind of new. We haven't really had this before. Typically, we do the policy adoption and review through the committee. But at any point in time, anyone from the public can come and comment on policy. And I think that's where Ms. Whedon is coming from. So for tonight, I guess what I'd like the board to consider is whether we want to discuss the policy at the SU board level, refer it to committee, or even not touch the policy at all. So I think that's what I hope to accomplish tonight, and with that, We'll open it up for discussion.
I think the committee should review it.
Okay.
Is the first step, and then bring it back to the board.
Okay.
What is the policy we're talking about? I know you're throwing out letters. Can I have it?
Well, the F-23 is the,
Is it in here? In our minutes?
No.
well, F-23 is equity policy.
Equity.
And or the other one is about sports, athletics.
Athletics, clubs, and activities.
And part of the issue is the reference towards elementary school versus, or non-reference towards elementary schools. So basically, they're applying a high school policy to elementary school.
Eric,
I think even at middle school level, there's a different level from middle school to varsity. I don't think there should be, in my personal opinion, cuts at middle school level. I've been a middle school coach. I think that you're developing skills and you're teaching sportsmanship.
From my
And-
understanding, BPA doesn't allow cuts for Division IV, period.
Yeah, I don't
Anybody who
think,
wants to be on the team can be
Well,
on the team.
there has been cuts for Division IV
Go ahead.
sports.
do we know the situation that brought this to the board? I think understanding what that situation is.
I think that situation would have to be discussed in executive session because I think it's a small school. It's a particular grade level, and I have no problem doing that, but in full disclosure, I did speak to Amanda, but I think that would have to, and I have no problem moving into executive session and discussing it, but executive session is where it would have to take place.
I don't think we should be talking about policy in executive session.
I don't think you're talking about policy, you're talking about the reason that you've got to this position. So you're not going to discuss policy, you're going to discuss the concern that has brought up the request for policy. It would be a student matter that you would be discussing in executive session.
Yeah, I don't know. I think student matters should be, most likely brought forth by the administration, not be brought into executive session,
A parent can bring a student matter to you for executive session. It doesn't have to be by administration.
Well, and, I don't know, I guess if the board needs to have that conversation, but again, this is a policy discussion, and, whether the situation that brought this, I think is relevant, because it's a request. It's a request to, take into consideration what she had thought was an issue with the policy. And, like I said at the beginning of this, I think the board should, if we, I don't know. I don't think we have to get into all that information to decide whether or not we want to
I don't
review a policy or not.
I don't think there needs to be cuts, period, in any of our schools. I mean, we're Division IV high schools, and we're talking about elementary kids and middle school kids. There doesn't need to be, we're trying to get kids to be more involved in extracurricular activities, and we shouldn't be cutting them from programs.
Right, and I think if you spoke to her, she's not talking about cut, she's talking about having kids have that experience at lower levels, that all kids. So I think that's the basis of the concern without getting
Do you mean making sure they have enough playing time?
It's like a weird thing to talk about in open session, I think, because it's such a small school and it's so easily identifiable. I just think it's a weird
Amanda has her hand up.
conversation.
She did.
Yeah, I mean, I
She
guess.
does again.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's, if,
Well, the basis for any policy change is based on something that's happened. So even just like the last policy, the reason for any policy is because there is a concern, and the reason for the change is because administration has brought something that there is a concern or something has transpired, so.
I think it's important, though, we go through channels. Was this addressed at the school level, number one?
My understanding, she said at the last meeting, and that she has gone through the proper channels per Chris, correct?
She has discussed this with all levels and is frustrated that
I mean,
that nothing has changed.
I think my
in that
point-
situation.
sorry to interrupt. I think my point is this a Wells Springs issue?
Yeah, I think it's a policy issue.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what a policy
But
is for.
I see in the minutes from last month that there was an issue whether she was speaking as a representative of the board or as a citizen or as a public.
She said she was speaking as a member of the public, that she was just here last meeting as your representative. And I think I may have asked the question, did it come before your board? Was that a question? Is that how it ended up here? Because the month prior, we had a conversation at Quarry Valley, something had come up, and we, as representatives to this board, had brought it to this board. So I was just seeking clarification on how it was coming for discussion to the board.
So did it come to the Wells Springs board?
No.
Okay.
Because it's like you said, she went through the proper channels, and I just think it's a disagreement on policy, and, and so our policy process is, typically, we develop all policy through the policy committee, but the policy committee works directly underneath the SU board. So since, we've already gone through this policy adoption process for this model policy, that's where I think it's important that the SU board decide whether or not we're going to change policy or just leave it as is,
I think the policy board should, based on everything said today, the policy board should take a look at it and come up with a recommendation.
I have zero information on how to make a decision, yes or no. I don't know what happened, or what policies were broken, or what policy wants to get changed. I've heard terms, but it's impossible for me to say yes or no without having any details.
I think the other piece.
Seems like some people do, but.
The other piece is some of the things that Amanda spoke to about the request for changes, and I don't know what that was that she sent to you, or verbiage, because I don't have that and didn't have that in the packet. I don't know if anybody else did. But some of those things do currently happen within schools. Like within Quarry Valley, if we have a junior high team currently, West Rutland can't field a baseball team, Proctor can't field a junior high baseball team. We already merge those teams together to have a team. So I don't want there to be this misunderstanding that things like that aren't already occurring without rewriting this policy, because they are and they have been for a very long time. I think it should go to policy if in policy that there needs to be foundational information given of why the policy needs to be considered, then the policy committee can go into executive session and listen to that. I think that that there probably should be some delineation between elementary school, middle school, and high school, because those are very different levels, and the expectations at each athletic level is different. But I also think that some of that already happens within buildings, so sometimes things can be characterized as just building issues.
Okay. Yeah. And, I think she described what she had sent me, so it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just don't want it to be misconstrued by the public that those kinds of things aren't happening, that we don't have that. I mean, we currently have co-ed teams. We currently intermingle, grades across districts and things like that. So those things are happening in some districts. So I would make a motion to send it to policy.
Okay. And I was just going to say, I'd be fine with that, because I think the policy committee can do a deeper dive into those concerns, and then also anything that might relate to the equity policy as well.
Yeah.
And the equity policy predates a lot of current policy too, so. Any further discussion on this? To move the policy to policy committee, other request?
I would just make sure that Amanda is invited to the meeting when you put it on the agenda to discuss at policy.
Of course. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Standing.
One abstention. Okay. Motion carries. All right. Next meeting date, future agenda items? Oh, public comment. It's not the first time I've done that. All right, public comment. Would anyone like to speak? Amanda?
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to add, I know without having a big discussion, to support kind of what Lisa was saying and to respond to Colin and George, I would recommend bringing the rescinded F8 to the policy committee as well, because a lot of the words that I suggested I took from F8 that was rescinded, because I feel like if those were included still, that would solve a lot of the problems. So I would just like to add, if you so choose, to refer to the rescinded F8 policy either prior to or at policy committee. You'll see that a lot of my recommendations are verbatim from that policy with very few words of my own, except for the definition changes. And then also to support the middle school thing, I absolutely agree. I actually had a second thing in there specifically saying middle school 7th and 8th, but I do know that some of our schools, are included, so I wanted to make sure that nobody was excluded. That's why I went with elementary and secondary, but obviously policy committee can look deeper and decide if there's a third definition needed. Just equal playing field for everybody. That's what I think is important, and thank you for listening. That's all.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have public comment? Okay. Back to agenda items, future agenda items. Nobody has any now, feel free to reach out before our next meeting. And we do have an executive session.
I don't have anything to add for negotiations, so.
Okay.
Yeah, at this time, so. There was something that we may have, but Chris Leopold didn't get back to me, so we're not.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yeah, sweet.
All right,
Blistering speed.
so that concludes our business for tonight, and I'll adjourn us at 7:08.